What's up, guys? Hope you had a good weekend. It was a good one for me. Some solid work done on the treehouse. Update coming very soon. Now, today is the Ask Elvis video that we always do on a Monday. Got loads of great questions to get through. But over the weekend, I was just going through the prize pot for all of my season-long giveaways. Most of you will know by now that every race preview, I'm giving away a prize that's been supplied to me by the gpbox.com. We've given away some awesome ones, and last week, you remember, I gave away a brilliant piece of Monaco artwork. That is now on its way to Philadelphia, out in the States, to the lucky winner of that. But going through them all at the weekend, I realised I got two more pieces of Monaco artwork by a guy called Joel Clark. Very, very clever and very good artist. It's brilliant pieces of art, and rather than hang on to them and find another race where it might seem a bit weird to give away some Monaco prizes, I thought we'd just give them away today. So as a bonus, we've got some extra pieces of F1 art to give away. If you hang around to the end of this video, you'll see what they are and how you can win them. In the meantime, though, let's crack on with some of your brilliant questions. Right, so apologies for doing this in the car, but I'm on the way to another solid week of filming on the Wheeler Dealer's Dream Car project, so I'm going to be in the car for a large part of this week. So this is the only time I can get to do it, but let's get on with some of these great questions. And we'll start with Carlos Frade, who says, what do you think if F1 cars became like the new Ferrari SF90 Stradale hybrid with the front axle electrified in 2021? Do you know what, Carlos? I'd love to see that. I would really like it. I think it's a great technology that's definitely road relevant, of course, isn't it? Increasing the hybrid part of a Formula One car can also bring with it extra power, which will make the cars harder to drive. I don't really see too many downsides to it. Obviously, there's a cost and a weight implication, but we can offset some of those with other areas of the car. But I know it's something that's been addressed, it's been discussed and assessed by the powers that be at Formula One, but it looks like it's not something that's going to be taken on, unfortunately, in the 2021 rule set. Of course, we don't really know because we still haven't got a 2021 rule set, but yeah, I'd love to see it. I think it would be a great move for Formula One and a great move towards a future that's perhaps a bit more relevant and a bit more sustainable for F1. But there we go. Willem Walthea says, why does F1 go to Canada, then continue back to Europe? Why don't they do a less invasive carbon footprint by doing Canada, Austin, Mexico and Brazil? There must be a reason for this. Well, Willem, I mean, there must be a reason for it, mustn't there? Lots of people have been asking exactly the same question. It seems more and more weird that we continue to stick with this order of races. Particularly as we've just done Monaco, we go to Canada and we come back to Paul Ricard, which is literally a few miles down the road from Monaco. Crazy stuff. So look, the reason is, the basic reason is that there are so many more factors that go into sorting out the race calendar. There are things like political considerations, there are climate considerations, there are other events going on in those particular host cities that they have to tie in with. Policing availability, there's all sorts, availability of the various venues and be able to shut down streets in certain locations. So there is a lot to go into it. There's a lot of planning and a lot of consideration that has to go into affecting the order. Plus some circuits have particular clauses in contracts that mean they want to be the first European race, or they want to be the first race of the season, or the last race of the season. There are various things like that. However, having said all that, in my opinion, it can't be too difficult to start resetting the program, resetting the calendar, resetting those contracts, so that we do end up doing it in a much more sensible way. Because first of all, it would massively cut down on the carbon footprint, as you say. It could easily cut down on the amount of work for people within the teams, the costs for everybody involved in Formula One in terms of flights, freight costs. I mean, there's so many reasons to do it that way. It seems nonsensical to not have it. So I totally agree with you. I totally sympathise with your concerns and all of that. And although I appreciate there's a lot more that goes into a calendar than it looks on the surface, I also don't believe that there's too much to prevent that from happening. Even if we started to plan it now for a 5-year period, in 5 years' time, let's say we're going to achieve this, must be possible. Brian Davies says, "Hi Mark, it seems that Ferrari have their hands full with Leclerc not being happy with an uncompetitive car and poor strategy decisions. Thoughts?" And why would he be happy? The thing with Charles Leclerc is he's obviously in his first year with Ferrari, so he's going to have a lot more patience than some other drivers might have. He's just happy to be there. This is a massive opportunity for him, so he's learning as much as they are. And look, Charles Leclerc has made a few mistakes this year, so he's not been perfect. Once he eradicates those mistakes, he can then start to turn his attention to the team, and he can start to focus that frustration, if he needs to, on trying to drag the team forward, trying to improve the team. So I think this year Charles will be absolutely fine. You know, he needs to up his game. The team definitely need to up their game. But there will be a longer term problem if Ferrari don't manage to sort things out, because a driver of Charles Leclerc's quality and his potential, where he will want world championships and he will want them to start coming pretty quickly, he will start to get very frustrated with a team like Ferrari if they don't start getting rid of the errors, starting getting rid of the poor decisions and mistakes that they keep making. So I think at the moment they're fine, but moving forward very soon they will have to start considering that. But look, that's not the biggest reason to eradicate mistakes, of course. The biggest reason is that they all want to win. Jen Sibal says, can an F1 driver decide to head out or to stay out on the track during qualifying? This is in reference to the Ferrari Q1 fiasco with Leclerc in Monaco. So, I guess two different answers. A driver can't just head out. They can't leave the garage without the full support of the team. And that's for a number of reasons. That's partly because that's just protocol, and obviously you need things like the wheels bolted on your car. You have to have consideration of the team, but also it's not like you can just start the engine up by yourself in a Formula One car and drive out. You need the support of the engineers to be able to enable the engine to be started, for example. It's not just a one-man operation. You have to have certain things set up, turned on in the software. You have to have the ability to start the car switched on. And that only happens when the engineers are ready in the garage. You've obviously then got to have the tyres bolted on, the tyre blankets removed at the right time, pressures done. There's so much involved from the team side that you can't just decide to head out. You can have a strong opinion as a driver, particularly as an experienced driver. You can certainly put your opinion forward and say, look, we really need to go. I need to go. I want to get out there. I don't feel comfortable. And if you are a well-established driver, the team will certainly listen to that opinion. They may overrule it, but they'll certainly listen. Don't forget, the team always have more information to hand than the driver has, so they see a bigger picture with most of these things. They don't always get the decisions right, as we saw with Ferrari and Charles Leclerc, but they always have more information to be able to make those decisions than a driver does from sitting in the cockpit. When it comes to already being out on the circuit, if you're called in by the team, you can essentially, if you want to, disobey that and stay out on track. You could do that, providing you've got enough fuel in the car to continue going round and round. And again, that's where the team have more information than the driver does. If they're calling you in, generally it's for a good reason. But if a driver really feels like he's got a bit more potential to get something out of the car, he's got a clear run in front of him, and there's enough fuel in the car, and there's enough time on the clock, then yeah, he could stay out if he wanted to and try for one more lap. Generally though, all these decisions are collaborative and have to be made together. Van Archie says, in your experience as a mechanic, which tracks tended to impose the lowest and highest ride heights on the cars? Thank you. Thank you, Van Archie. Well, in my day, it was quite different. That makes me sound old, doesn't it? Back in my day. In my day, it was a bit different because back then the theory was generally to run the car. We would run the car as low as we could possibly run it for aerodynamic benefit. And therefore the front ride height was incredibly low, and then the rear ride height was also incredibly low, slightly higher than the front, but not a lot. And actually, so the tracks, raising the ride height or lowering it was typically around bumps on the circuit. So places like Monaco, we'd have to jack the car up quite a bit because it was such a bumpy track, bumpy street circuit. You couldn't risk being that low because the car would bottom out so much, and there were others like that too. And then equally or conversely, with tracks that were very smooth, places like Sochi, for example, in Russia when it was first built, very, very smooth surface. So in that instance, we could run the car very, very low because it wouldn't bottom out. There was no real danger of that. And the aerodynamic benefit of getting lower was greater. But of course, fast forward a few years and look where we are now. We've now got cars jacked up so high at the rear that you could climb underneath them as a mechanic without even jacking it up. I mean, that was unheard of back in my day. So now it's not so much about getting the overall platform of the car as low as it possibly can be. It's much more, the front is still very low, of course. The front definitely is about getting that very, very low. But the rear is all about expanding that diffuser effect, isn't it? By jacking the car up, sort of extending the diffuser profile all the way down the car. And by having that very, very low front ride height, what you do is you compress, you squeeze the air through a very small gap at the front of the floor. That's where it becomes accelerated, it becomes at its fastest, and therefore the greatest downforce is produced at that point. The greatest area of low pressure is produced at that front part of the floor where the air is being squeezed through that tiny gap. At the rear though, it's about jacking it up as high as you can get away with. So lowering the car for aerodynamic benefit is not the limiting factor anymore. So it's actually a very different way of working out ride heights these days. You still do have to factor in the lumps and bumps of places like Singapore and Monaco, but it's not quite the same. You're not lowering the whole car to be as low as it can possibly be in the perfect situation for aerodynamic gain. HZMJF says, hi Mark, something had me wondering, how does an F1 team determine their garage spots in a Grand Prix? Is it randomly distributed or determined by something like racing points or of some sort? Love your videos, by the way. Thanks very much, and thanks for the question. So it's determined by your finishing position in the Constructors' Championship from the year before. So the team who wins gets the priority spot at the end of the pit lane. Typically that's at pit lane entry, and that allows you to have generally a bit more space because you're on the end and you get a little bit more garage space or a little bit more apron space at the front of the garage, but also gives you a nice clean run into your pit box. So there is an advantage to having that. Whereas if you're further down in the middle, of course, you've got to negotiate your way in and out between two other teams. And therefore the team that comes last ends up down the opposite end of the pit lane. Now they also have a tiny advantage in that exiting their pit box, they have nothing to negotiate, no further teams. But at some circuits, when they are short of space, the teams down that end, so the last teams in the preceding year's championship, end up with slightly less space, garage space and working space, just to house all their equipment. So there is an advantage to being at the sharp end. And of course, I guess that's natural given that goes to the teams that were most successful the year before. But that's how it's organised. Harsha says, hi Mark, is it not possible to remove the chicane, turns 10 and 11, after the tunnel, this is in Monaco, to create a bit of a straight until turn 12 to increase overtaking possibility? Why aren't Liberty thinking to rearrange the street circuits a bit to help for better racing? You're talking about Monaco. As you come out the tunnel, of course, we come to that chicane of turns 10 and 11. We then head down a further sort of straightish bit to head around the edge of the harbour, don't we? And that's where we rejoin that section that goes past the swimming pool. So what you're suggesting is remove the chicane, keep that a flat out straight down towards the left-hand turn at the back that goes around towards around past the harbour front. Is that possible? I guess with a bit of work and you know, making some fairly substantial changes, that would be possible. So in one sense, yes, I guess if there was enough commitment and enough desire to do it, you could do it. Will it improve the racing? I'm not so sure. Don't forget, coming out through the tunnel's not really an overtaking opportunity. And somebody else asked, why can't we have a DRS zone through the tunnel? You've got to remember, the tunnel actually is quite a substantial turn. Midway through that tunnel, there's a reasonably big turn through there. I mean, even on the F1 game, when I'm playing it on the simulator, you have to be very careful to get your line right, otherwise you can swap ends very quickly going through that tunnel through the right-hander. So that's the first thing. You come out of that very fast right-hand turn exiting the tunnel at high speed. I don't think there's enough straight or enough distance, even with the removal of that chicane, to get enough enough speed through with a DRS zone even to put on an overtake, because the next turn at back is a fast turn. If we had a big braking zone going into a slow corner at that point, then absolutely that might be possible. But because back's actually still a very fast corner with just a bit of a lift in a Formula One car, it's still not really enough room or enough space or enough width or enough opportunity to make that an overtaking chance, I don't think. So I think it would be a lot of work, a lot of effort, and I don't think it would really improve the racing. To come on to your second point of why aren't Liberty looking at making changes to street circuits, I would say just hold fire. They are. Liberty are, and I will give them credit for this, and FOM, they are assessing and looking at every single possible option to improve Formula One in every area, whether that's the racing, the sporting side, the technical side, the financial side. They are looking at every single option available, and you've got to give them credit for that. And just because we haven't seen the decisions made or announced just yet, maybe that's not a bad thing. How many times have we seen knee-jerk reactions made in Formula One where the wrong decision has been made? So Ross Brawn and his team are looking at everything in the forensic levels of detail that they're used to doing, and I think that's got to be a positive for Formula One. Let's see where they all end up. Some circuits may be able to be modified and changed, others just simply won't be able to, but it won't be because they haven't thought about doing it. Monster Matty says, with both Ricciardo and Hülkenberg singing the praises of the new Renault Formula One engine after Monaco, is that a sign that Renault can start the climb up the midfield to be best of the rest? Well, let's remember that Monaco, you've got to take that with a slight pinch of salt when it comes to engine performance. It's not the biggest test of a power unit's performance levels around Monaco, of course. Let's maybe wait until we get to Canada, which will be a much bigger, much more representative challenge for the power units. But still, positive signs that both drivers are saying that. Of course, they could just be towing the company line and saying the right things in terms of a PR exercise. But if it's genuine, if that's the feeling they've come away from Monaco with, it's obviously positive, it's obviously a good sign. But as I say, I think places like Canada will be a much bigger test and much more representative test. Can they be best of the rest? I actually still think Renault have got more problems than just their power unit, and I think the fact that McLaren have been, outpacing them and outperforming them consistently kind of shows that with the same power unit. Renault have got to get everything in order within their organisation and within their car's performance if they're going to be best of the rest. So power unit's a great step, but they've got probably quite a long way to go. They're still building a team. Should have been done by now, let's be honest. They've put an awful lot of time and money. They've increased the numbers of people massively at Enstone, but that does all take time to gel, to get working properly. It's just how long they get given by the board of Renault that concerns me. I think Cyril Abiteboul has probably had a decent run at this. He's had a good opportunity. He's had a lot of resource thrown his way, and yet they're still struggling to get any kind of results out of it. So that would be a concern for me. But yeah, positive news, I guess, positive reactions to the power unit from Monaco. Let's hope that continues so that the midfield battle can stay alive right through to the end of the season. Right, final question then from you guys, and I'll hold my hands up and say I don't know the answer to this one, so I'm going to throw it open to you guys. Does anybody know the answer to this question from Carcosa, who says, what do the different coloured areas at the marshal posts signify? For example, in this picture of Monaco, you can see that the barriers at the marshal posts are either coloured white or orange. Does anybody know the answer to that? I don't honestly know. So if you do, give us a shout. Let us all know, and let's see if we can answer this question for Carcosa. Right, thank you very much for all of your questions, everybody. Now, as promised, we're going to get into giving away this other Monaco artwork that I found kicking around at home this weekend. Right, this is what it looks like, and I think you'll agree it's awesome. I've got more of Joel's stuff coming up to give away over the course of the season, which I think is brilliant. All I need you to do to win this, very simple. I'm going to give you a link in the description below this video. Follow that link, it'll take you to Joel's page at thegpbox.com. Have a look through his artwork, and all I want you to do is copy and paste the link to the piece of artwork that you like best on his page in the comments section of this video, and maybe tell me why you like it as well, and then use the hashtag GPBbonus. So that's GPB bonus. 2 B's in that, very easy to miss one out. use that hashtag and I will search through them on Thursday when I do the next preview for the Canada Grand Prix. I will pick out a winner of all of the entries that have linked one of those pieces of artwork from Joel Clark together with that hashtag of GPB bonus in the comments of this video, and on Thursday one of you guys will be able to win that brilliant Monaco piece of artwork. So thank you very much to Joel for supplying that piece of art, and to the GP Box who supplied all of the pieces of art for this season's giveaway. So thank you to all of them. Go check out their stuff if you haven't already. Thank you to you guys for all your questions. Have a great week. I will speak to you very soon, and good luck with the competition.